Hey, welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
And my name is Dyl, and today I want you to drop a like, I want you to drop a comment, because we are going into some deep stuff. The Oscar nominations, but we're putting a spin on it. We're going to go through all the nominations and put one thing that we wish could be there. It doesn't have to be realistic. You want to go with what was like realistic, the number 6 or 7. So Matt, what do we got here?
Let's start off with Best Picture. One film that we each wish just could have been in that lineup. So with Best Picture, I love this lineup. This is one of my favorite Best Picture lineups we've had in a while.
Me too.
It's definitely better than last year's. It's rivaling 2020's. So we've got All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, Top Gun: Maverick, Triangle of Sadness, and Women Talking. If you were to add one film to this lineup, what would you add?
There's a lot of things I could do here, because even though I do love this lineup, I personally would say this is the best lineup of Best Picture nominees since I've been born, so 1999. Since then to now, this would be my favorite lineup of Best Picture nominees. It's so strong, it's so deep. To me, maybe its highs don't reach the highs of that Parasite Once Upon a Time in Hollywood year, but it goes so much deeper. Like, there's not a movie here I dislike. However, for this little exercise we're doing today, I don't want to repeat the same movie over and over again, because even though there's a lot of movies I saw this year, some movies just rise above the rest, and I feel like that one movie that I could nominate in like 10 categories, I should just throw it here to Best Picture, and that is Matt Reeves' The Batman. For me, this is the ultimate superhero movie, because it puts together multiple genres while also staying true to the characters itself. With as shaky as adapted screenplay was this year, I feel like The Batman could be a pretty solid replacement type nominee. It's like, hey, we adapted our source material, but we also elevated it to a new level. It has amazing cinematography, editing, sound, great acting performances, let alone the fact that Colin Farrell, Paul Dano almost got in, but Barry Keoghan as well, all got Oscar nominations, and they were all in this movie as well. You almost had 3 Oscar nominees just in this movie, just for, different roles. But overall, The Batman is just a well-directed movie, it's a well-crafted movie, and it's a very enjoyable time. And a Best Picture lineup that has a lot of movies pushing 3 hours, The Batman does that as well, but does not feel like that at all. The pacing here is amazing. And like I mentioned before, I can nominate this in like 10 categories and call it a day. But if I can nominate that many, I feel like it definitely deserves a Best Picture nomination out of myself.
It's so rare to find a movie that long that flies by the way that film does. So I'm not going to be as strict on myself as you are. You're limiting yourself to one mention from each film. I'm not going to do that. I'm not gonna do that.
You're not a madman.
I'm gonna name a couple of films multiple times, but I'll make a point as to why each of them deserves that nomination, and I'm gonna try not to over-represent anything. So for Best Picture, I'm gonna start off by saying that I think animation is horribly overlooked. Animation is a medium that I think people treat as child's play, even though sometimes the most expressive films in the world are animated films. And every year, usually one of my top favorites is an animated film. Last year, The Mitchells vs. the Machines was in my top 3 of the year. This year, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is my second favorite film of the year. And that's why I would put it in Best Picture, not just because I love the film, but because I think that we need to get animation back into Best Picture sometime soon. Mm-hmm. I'm currently saying hopefully next year we can do it with Hayao Miyazaki's Swan Song. Although, really, with the performance of Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio this year, despite the fact that it had fantastic reviews, despite the fact that it was nomination competitive in multiple categories, it just couldn't crack in, which I find very, very disappointing. But ultimately, if I'm thinking of what I would want to add to the Best Picture lineup, it'd be some long-deserved representation for animated films.
Going over to Best Director, our nominees that the Oscars gave us were Martin McDonagh in The Banshees of Inisherin, The Daniels in Everything Everywhere All at Once, Steven Spielberg for The Fabelmans, Todd Field for Tar, and Ruben Östlund for Triangle of Sadness. Our foreign director, it rings true, we get one every year, but I know that you would nominate another foreign director if given the opportunity.
I would. We talked about this possibility for so long. What if S.S. Rajamouli gets in? And truly, I can't think of anyone more deserving for a directing nomination. What Rajamouli does in this film is outstanding. It's parallel to George Miller's work on Mad Max Fury Road. Every single time you believe that they have done everything that they can and they can't get any crazier, they can't do anything bigger, there you go. And your mind is blown all over again. I was so happy to see Rajamouli get some recognition from the Critics' Choice Awards, from the New York Film Critics Circle, but I just so wish that the Oscars could have come along with. And that's why, for me, if I were to nominate one more in this category, not replacing anyone, but one more in this category, it would be S.S. Rajamouli for RRR.
There is one director this year that was so innovative, who made you feel a part of their world. And I mean, he took forever to make this. And in my opinion, he delivered on every front. And I can't wait to see what he does next. And that is James Cameron for Avatar: The Way of Water. This is a movie that did you could say underperformed at the Oscars. It got picture, it got some text, but everything that works for this movie comes directly from James Cameron, whether it's the visuals, the story, the action, the visual effects, the creative design. This is Cameron's vision that's being brought to life, and kind of similar to last year with Denis Villeneuve for Dune. It's just one of those nominations to me. It's like, you feel like this has to come along. It's so impactful, it's so meaningful, and if I could add one, I would add James Cameron.
Say no cultural impact as much as you want. I think that The Way of Water has changed the game.
That moves us over to Best Actor, where I don't think there will be any Avatar mention for Jake Sully, but our actors for the Oscars were Austin Butler in Elvis, Colin Farrell for The Banshees of Inisherin, Brendan Fraser for The Whale, Paul Mescal for After Sun, and Bill Nighy for Living. And I think that our number one choice is the same here. So I'm going to let you talk about this actor here. I'll add a little bit, but then I'll give a little bit of an alternative so we can mention two people instead of just one.
So we're both going to be talking about the same person. Eden Dambreen from Close just deserves the recognition. If we were to add one nomination, I mean, for one thing, usually young actors really don't get the recognition they deserve in this category. In any of the acting categories, actually. Like, young performers deserve so much more attention. And with Eden Dambreen in Close, this is one of the greatest child performances I've ever seen. The sensitivity that this kid brings to the screen, the maturity that this kid brings to the screen. I don't know how they did it. Mm-hmm. Like, I've heard so many directors who work with kids a lot, like Spielberg or Taika Waititi, say that the trick to getting really great performances out of kids is to cast kids that are very similar to the role that you're trying to portray, and then the work is easy because they just have to be themselves on camera. This is a role that demands so much emotional energy, and I just don't know how they got that out of a child.
I fully agree, and I would level up your comment to go higher. I would say this is the best child performance I've ever seen. Have I seen them all? No. But in my opinion, this is the favorite. This is the best one that I have seen. And I just wish somewhere would have thrown him a bone along the line. Obviously, I knew this was never going to happen at the Oscars. They don't really like child performances. They don't really like international child performances. But Eden is amazing and Close. This movie's actually going into release as we speak now. So hopefully it will come out to your city shortly and you can just see how powerful this movie is and how amazing Eden is in this role. Mm-hmm. As we mentioned, we both had the same pick here, so we're just going to do a quick little, shout out to some other people. You mentioned child performances. You mentioned Steven Spielberg. I want to give a shout out to Gabriel LaBelle.
Same mind there. Gabriel LaBelle.
I wish he could have got nominated at the Oscars. That would have been such a great Oscar. Like, because the Oscars always do these coattail nominations. Like, oh, we love this movie. We're going to lump in, like, this actor or this other, like, award with it. And I just wish Gabriel LaBelle could have been that with The Fabelmans this year.
That's enough Best Lead Actor. Let's move on to the highly contested category, the one that everyone is talking about right now, Best Lead Actress. And let's just start off by saying that this is a really tough category to talk about, mostly just because it's not that anyone here is not deserving. It's not that anyone was more deserving. It's just that politics often gets in the way of, not of rewarding the right performances, because there's no right performances, but politics comes into play, and that's why there were some snubs here that people are very rightfully so upset about. But let's focus on the positive. We've got Cate Blanchett in Tar. We've got Ana de Armas in Blonde. We've got Andrea Riseborough in To Leslie. We have Michelle Williams in The Fabelmans. We have Michelle Yeoh in Everything Ever All at Once. This is a great lineup. But if you were to add one more, Who would you add?
As Matt mentioned, this is a very competitive category. I had a short list of 3 people I wanted here. One is from a movie I really wanted to nominate elsewhere. One is from a movie I don't really know if I want to nominate anywhere else. However, the one from the movie I want to nominate elsewhere is just by far my favorite lead actress performance, so it would feel disingenuous for me not to pick them here. And you mentioned bone chilling. Well, how about some bones and all? Taylor Russell delivers a career high from her and delivers one. I know she's not a child, but she is a younger actress, and this to me is her defining role. Even though I loved her in Waves, I got her onto the scene, this is the role that people will look at years from now and be like, this is the role that made her into a star. I just can't wait to see what she gets casted in next. She's able to communicate so much as Marin just through her eyes, through nonverbals, which for me is a very rewarding thing from an actor or an actress. As we mentioned with Eden and Close, he's able to communicate so much without verbally speaking, and Taylor Russell does the same here. And then when she does speak, there's so much power and there's so much weight to her performance. It's just when I would shower with all the awards, let alone just getting nominated. This would be my winner in the category overall for the year. But how about you?
It would have to be Tang Wei in Decision to Leave. She is amazing in this film. I spoke so much this year about what Janelle Monáe does in Glass Onion is very exceptional, because they're playing multiple characters and they're playing a character pretending to be someone else. I would actually say that I think Tang Wei does that even better in Decision to Leave.
I agree.
With the duplicity of this character, the layers of playing not multiple people, but just multiple personas in one. The secrets that are being hidden, the things that go unsaid. This is a masterful performance.
So that moves us over to supporting actor, where we have our double Banshee boys showing up again, Brendan Gleeson and Barry Keoghan. We have Judd Hirsch getting, you could say, a surprising nomination for The Fabelmans. Brian Tyree Henry getting the real surprise nomination here for Causeway. And who I think is our personal winner for each of us for the year in this category, Ke Quan and Everything Everywhere All at Once. But we just mentioned our lead actress people, and I said Bones and All with Taylor Russell is a movie I want to nominate everywhere. This is a category where I would love to nominate for Mark Rylance. He's brilliant. He's amazing. He would be my runner-up in this category for the year, but I've already used Bones and All, so I want to give a shout to another movie. And this is a movie I honestly don't love. It's a movie that would be honestly my bottom of my best picture lineup from the 10 that made it in. But Zlatko Burke in Triangle of Sadness is amazing. He knows what he needs to be in this role. He delivers. He has, honestly, in my opinion, the best line reading of the year with the I sell shit bit on the boat. And I just would love, for as much love Triangle's been getting from various bodies, whether it is the Oscars or the BAFTAs, that he could have came along someplace with it.
Let's take it back to Close. I told you I'd be nominating multiple people from a few films, and I have to give a shout out to Gustave de Waal in Close, who plays the best friend of Eden Dambrine's character, gives an equally excellent performance. Doesn't have as much screen time for reasons I won't go into, but every moment that he has on screen is so captivating, is so heartfelt and melancholic and beautiful. The work that these two do together on screen, I'm just blown away. I have no idea how they got these two. I'll just echo what I said for Eden Dambrine. Yeah. How the hell did they get 2 child performers to act this well? But let's get into this next category, supporting actress. I love this lineup. I love this lineup. Too. I love that we could fit Stephanie Hsu in here. We also have Jamie Lee Curtis, also for Everything Ever All at Once, Carrie Condon for The Banshees of Inisherin, Hong Chow for The Whale, and Angela Bassett for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. So if you could add, I think I know what your answer is here. Yeah. I've already mentioned them. So who would your number 6 be?
My number 6 would be, like you said, who you just mentioned before, Janelle Monáe, who delivers everything you just said about Tang Wei in Decision to Leave here in Glass Onion. I love what they're able to do with this role, playing. I feel like this movie's been out enough, so you can say this. They're playing 2 roles, and they're doing them masterfully. And there's always, like, when you watch a movie, like, oh, there's a big twist. There's a person who's not what you see. You go back and rewatch it. And this still holds up on a rewatch. It's not like, oh, you can see through the cracks, you can see through the holes. Like, oh, this is when they're one person, this is when they're the other person. Like, no, you can really tell they're one person committed to playing another person.
This is really tricky because I think that all the women in this film deliver exceptional work, and it feels wrong to shout out one of them over everyone else. But I have to give a shout out specifically to Claire Foy in Women Talking here. Although, truly, you could swap this answer out for anyone in the cast of Women Talking, and that would be my answer. Not just Claire Foy, but Jessie Buckley, Judith Ivey, Sheila McCarthy, Rooney Mara, Michelle McLeod, all give such beautiful, exceptional, lived-in, very subtle performances. But the reason why I'm just going to mention Claire Foy in specific is the scene that you see in the trailers. The monologue scene, the scene where she says, "We know that we have been bruised and hurt, and some of us are dead." It takes a really strong actor to deliver a monologue like that and not overblow it. And not do too much, but at the same time, not do too little. Shout out to every single woman in that cast. It is such a strong ensemble. And the reason why I think we don't see anyone from Women Talking here is because everyone's going to come out of that movie with someone who made an impression on them. And every one of those women made an impression on me. But I'm just going to give a shout out to that monologue from Claire Foy.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. This cast, this ensemble is so good. And everyone has someone different. Because I remember when you saw that TIFF, I saw Virginia, and some other people that we know all saw it. And we asked, hey, who is your favorite? And I think we all gave a different answer for the most part. And I was like, wow, this is the true definition of an ensemble award. Yeah. And I know we all love Everything Everywhere Else as ensemble, but hey, SAG, please, Women Talking, redeem it right here.
Women Talking would be an incredibly deserving ensemble winner. And although Everything Everywhere All at Once needs that to get to Best Picture, I would be over the moon. I'd be over the moon to see Women Talking take it. But let's get to Adapted Screenplay. The nominees we have in this category are All Quiet on the Western Front, Glass Onion, Living, Top Gun Maverick, and Women Talking. And I gotta say, this is a category that was pretty highly contested for a while. We didn't fully know where this was going, but I think this lineup is one of the better lineups we could have had in this category.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And I guess in retrospect, it wasn't really that up in the air once you saw what happened. Some other categories like, oh yeah, this makes sense. All Quiet's here, got in picture. Maverick's here, it's in picture. Women Talking made picture. Glass Onion, the first one got in, and Living makes sense. They respect the writer. The Whale missed. That should miss here too. So like, it all makes sense in retrospect. I guess my shout out here would be the other movie that was somewhat in contention, because I really love this script. And that's For She Said. And you and I had our reservations about this movie before we saw it based off of the trailer. Like, okay, is this just going to be Hollywood patting themselves on the back? Like, hey, we caught the one bad guy and we're good from here. And guess what? This movie was not that. For me, it was up there with Spotlight in terms of investigative journalism. As a journalism major in college who got my degree in that type of field, I just loved and respected how true to like real life it was. I just loved and respect how well and how appreciative it was written to not be exploitive or taking advantage of any certain thing that we feared with this movie and some other movies that came out this year dealing with some very heavy topics. And at the end of the day, I am sad that it missed, but as you mentioned, this is a great lineup, and that's why we have this show here, to give a quick shout out to She Said.
I'll break the rules right here. I'm going to give two: Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio and The Batman, both for the same reason. And the reason for both of these is that I think that they both take mythologies and stories that we're very familiar with as an audience. I mean, how many goddamn Batman reboots are there? How many goddamn Pinocchio reboots are there? There were 3 Pinocchios this past year. We know these stories. And the thing that both of these films do incredibly well is they reinvent the stories for a new audience and with a new vision. Just as Pinocchio is titled Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, you could just as easily call it Matt Reeves' The Batman. And it's because it's a distinct vision. In Pinocchio, it's not just the familiar Disney version of the story. It's a story of fascism and how easy it can be to be corrupted, and what it means to be good in the world. Meanwhile, The Batman, you have a superhero movie turned into a neo-noir with all of these familiar characters that have been twisted into different, like the Riddler becoming an online forum poster, incel type. The creative license taken with this, I think, is what makes The Batman a worthwhile reboot to the story. Otherwise, I think we'd be sitting here being like, why did they make another one? Yeah, it looks cool, but why did they make another one? The screenplay is what makes the difference. It really does. So those two I want to give shout outs to because they truly take in the spirit of adapted screenplay. They adapt the source material and make something brand new.
Original screenplay is a category that we all kind of saw coming what the 5 would be, and that was Banshees. Everything Ever All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, and Triangle of Sadness. Quick and easy, and my addition here is a quick and easy one as well. Cha-Cha Real Smooth. Not much to say other than I really enjoy this movie. I really enjoyed its writing, and I basically have lived the main character's life for a little portion, so I really resonated and connected with this script. There's not much else for me to add other than I really like the script here.
Yeah, so you were DJing at bar mitzvahs?
Basically, yeah.
I'm going to give my shout to a comedy that I think was, like Cha-Cha Real Smooth, way too quickly forgotten. This one seemed to be forgotten even when it was in theaters, which was such a shame because it's a refreshing and hilarious comedy that truly was up there with some of the best of Judd Apatow's output. And it's Bros. For me, it just clicked perfectly. I was laughing my ass off the entire time, and that says something for the success of a comedy. I would have loved to see this film get into this category. It's every ounce as deserving as Bridesmaids was 10 years ago. 11 years ago.
I agree.
All that being said, let's move on to our next Best Cinematography. Our nominees we've got here, All Quiet on the Western Front, Bardo, False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths, Elvis, Empire of Light, and Tar. So if you could add one to this category, what would you do? And just to say, there are a lot of great looking films this year that we have to draw from.
There are. I could take the easy way out and say, hey, where's your winner here of Top Gun Maverick? But I'm not going to do that because I don't have to predict this movie in another category because the Oscars, they redeemed me. They put this in the international, so I can give it a shout out here in cinematography, and that is EO. We talked about this movie a ton here on the show, so I don't really want to go all that back into it. But EO, if you haven't seen it, it's rolling on the theaters now. Watch it. Go in blind. Don't really know much about it, and just let it take you away. But just know this. Cinematography is honestly one of the best of the year with how inspired this branch is usually. I was kind of hoping maybe.
I gotta go with Athena. Athena, this is a movie where when I was watching this on Netflix, I kept pausing to pick my jaw up off the floor and go, how the hell did they do this? How the hell did they pull that off? And the answer is, I still have no idea. I don't know how they pulled it off. It's long take after long take, just explosions and crowds and traveling long distances. How they did this film, I don't know.
I still need to watch it, but every time I hear people talk about it, I'm just like, I need to see this because I am a big sucker for some one-take movies, and it sounds like Athena has those in it.
It's great.
What I'm also a sucker for is my pick for documentary feature. But first, I want to say what the Oscars nominated, and that's All That Breathes, All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, Fire of Love, A House Made of Splinters, and Navalny. But Oscars, come on. Where's Jackass Forever? I forgot which critics branch did it. One critics branch, like regional one, they nominated this. I'm like, yes, thank you. Someone who recognized that the Jackass movies are documentaries. They're just a group of guys going to do dumb stuff.
My shout out for documentary here would be Users, which was a very low scene film. It has 78 votes on IMDb. It reminds me a lot of visual mosaic documentaries like Samsara or Koyaanisqatsi. It is so beautifully shot, some of the best cinematography of the year, and it deserves so much more praise than it got. It won the directing prize at the Sundance Film Festival in 2021, and it released this year to barely more than a whimper, but it is such a beautiful film, and I highly recommend tracking it down because it's amazing. But let's check out film editing. We've got The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Ever All at Once, Tar, and Top Gun Maverick. If you could add one in this category, what would you add?
So, this is not going to make sense, but promise it will. Hear me out. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. This movie is so stylized. It's so quick and speedy. Like, you don't feel this runtime at all. It's like an hour 40, and it feels like it's under an hour. You get in, you get out. There's so many, like, multi-shot angles, like kind of like what Elvis does, but in a more concise package. And I don't know, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is a very out there type film editing nomination, but I'm always for those out there ones, like last year when The Bachelor did Summer of Soul, great editing nomination. And this lineup here is already great. Elvis, Everything Ever All at Once, Top Gun Maverick, they're in my personal lineups, and Puss in Boots is not in my own personal lineup, but it's one I just want to give a shout out for because the screenplay here, the voice acting, and especially the editing is what makes this movie so lovable, and I think why so many people out there are really clamoring up behind this movie to be like, hey, this animated movie is for real.
I have to say women talking. And the reason I'm going to say women talking for editing is because of how much this film was shaped in the edit room. How much our relationships with these characters comes from the edit. How even though we don't really get to know these characters outside of this loft, the editing makes sure that we feel by the end of the film as though we know them all. Even though put together, each of these characters must only have 5 to 10 minutes worth of dialogue. Just the way that this film uses reaction shots, the way that this film cuts around to show us everything that's happening in this room is truly beautiful. So our next category we're going to talk about, international feature. So we'll both try and talk about films that were submitted, but I will mention RRR right off the bat as one that was not submitted. But for films that were submitted, Germany's All Quiet on the Western Front, Argentina's Argentina 1985, Belgium, Close, Poland, EO, and Ireland, The Quiet Girl. So if you could nominate one country's film that's submitted, what would it be?
It would be Mexico with Bardo.
I didn't see that one
Alejandro Gonzalez's Inarrituo's State of Mind worked for me. I fully get why people don't rock with this movie, why they don't like this movie. But hey, you have to admit this. Even if you don't like the screenplay, you have to admit the visuals are great. You have to mention the acting is great. And you have to mention, and I would even say, the score is great. It's so innovative and it's so out there and it's so different. Kind of like EO's as well. They both are very different type of scores for the movies that they're actually for. And they very much, I think, work for them.
So for me, the film that I'm going to shout out is Denmark's submission, Holy Spider. This is, I think, the movie that David Fincher wishes he made. It's not an easy watch, but I think it's an important film to watch. Our next category, Best Original Song. We've got Applause from Tell It Like a Woman, Hold My Hand by Lady Gaga from Top Gun Maverick, Lift Me Up by Rihanna from Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Natu Natu from RRR, This Is a Life by Mitski and David Byrne from Everything Everywhere All at Once. So let's hit it. What are your picks? I think you're gonna cheat again on this one.
Yeah, I'm cheating because this is not a knock on any of the nominees, but the song category is always my least favorite at the Oscars. They are, at least to me, very uninspired. They just kind of go with what you kind of expect them to go with. They go with Diane Warren. They go with the Best Picture nominees in credit songs, so on and so forth. So both of my suggestions here are stuff that's not even made the short list, because why would they make the short list? I don't have much to say about either of these besides they're both bops. So the first one's just a bop, and that's Doja Cat's Vegas from Elvis. It got disqualified for a dumb reason. I don't think sampling a song should disqualify you. Like, I would get if like the whole song was like Elvis singing or previous versions of the song, but it's just a sample for the hook, and Doja Cat adds stuff throughout the thing. I don't know if you can see behind me. There's an autographed Doja vinyl there. So
cool.
Big Doja Cat fan here. And the other one I want to shout out is my double cheat, because I said I'm only going to mention each movie once, but Bones and All, You Make Me Feel Like Home. This is by far the best song from a movie this year. Its place in the film adds so much heart, adds so much merit, adds so much emotional weight. This is one you can very much listen to on your own as well, which I think is a very important thing with this category, because obviously the song should be impactful in the scene that you see it from, but it should also be able to work outside of the movie. And I feel like both of these songs, maybe not so much Vegas inside the movie, but both of these songs really work outside of the movie. But I cheated there, so I feel like you should be allowed to cheat as well.
So the way I'm going to cheat, I'll say one that was eligible, and then I'll say one from a film that was not eligible at all. So my one that was eligible was Love Is Not Love from Bros. What a great song. What an emotional finale to that movie. Such a lovely, lovely moment. And one, when I saw it at TIFF, I was like, oh, this is getting nominated. It wasn't even shortlisted, but what a great song. Totally deserves the mention. I'm going to have to go with a song from Bo Burnham's Inside Outtakes, which was The Chicken. Bo Burnham sang a song in that movie, which was basically an extended Why Did the Chicken Cross the Road joke. And it is genuinely one of the most beautiful songs of the year. Not eligible because Bo Burnham's Inside Outtakes. Not only is this a song that was an outtake from his movie from last year, but this is also a YouTube video that was
We have no limits here. We can nominate whatever we want because no one is stopping us. In fact, that brings us to production design, where our nominees were All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, Babylon, Elvis, and The Fablemans. I think a pretty solid bunch. However, because no one can stop me, I can do whatever I want. I want The Northman. This movie overall, not a really big fan of it, but its production design is great. When you have one-take movies, you need to build big sets. The Northman has a lot of intense, deep, long one-takes, and to make those be able to pull off, you need, first, great actors, great cinematography, but you also need impressive production design. That's the one thing about Robert Eggers movies. You can say whatever you want about their quality, of their good movies, but they're always faithful to the times. They always have a lot of technical craft put into them, and The Northman is no exception.
If I have to give a production design nomination here, it's Glass Onion. Hands down. This is my winner in the category. Glass Onion does such an incredible job with its production design, with just building not just an entire island that a billionaire would live in, but building the character of Miles into the island and into the tasteless design. The fact that the Mona Lisa is sitting beside a Rothko, which is hung upside down. There's so many great little shouts in here, so many great little decisions that really, really show that the production designers were in the mind of the characters designing this house.
That brings us to Best Visual Effects, where the Oscars nominated All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Batman, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and Top Gun: Maverick. There's one movie who I would put in contention to win if Avatar wasn't here, but I'm not using that as my suggestion, and that's Nope, because I'm saving that for another category where I feel like it is much more deserved. So I want to give a shout out actually to the Oscars and to them making shortlist, because before they made a shortlist, I didn't really know this movie had much visual effects. I thought it was all practical. But that is a shout to 13 Lives, because I saw a little before and after video. I read what they did, and it's amazing how lifelike it all looks. Like, when you watch that movie, you're like, oh, this is obviously like a set. They're not like they made this. Like, no, it's visuals. Like, and it's just, I can't even put into words. Like, I'm fumbling my words just for how impressive the visual effects work was for 13 Lives. I think the VFX line that we got was very good. I just really wish from the shortlist that this could have found its way to sneak in, because it's so impressive, and from a movie that otherwise is pretty much completely ignored across the board.
The visual effects category, the one flaw of this category is that they always go for the biggest films with the most money behind them. When this year we had a little scrappy film with tons of visual effects, being Everything Ever All at Once, with such a great narrative that this was done by a team of 7 on After Effects, just on their little computers, and now it's on biggest multiplexes in the world. Everything Ever All at Once is so creative in its use of visual effects, and ultimately that's what I wish that we got to see in this category more of. Not just what are the most polished visual effects, but what is the most creative use of visual effect.
But speaking of creativity, that brings us to animated feature, which I think we have a very creative lineup, including Pinocchio, Marcel the Shell, Puss in Boots, The Sea Beast, and Turning Red. My shout out here, pretty quick and easy getting out. I think it's another very creative movie. I know it's one that you don't really like the most, but that's The Bad Guys, DreamWorks, other big movie that came out this year. I just love how stylized this is. It feels like it's taking inspiration from a lot of the crime dramas, actions, comedies that we know from the past, but making it into a more accessible kids format. And I just thought it was a great time. Is this a movie I'm going to sit back like a Pinocchio or Puss in Boots and think about for a long time? No, but it's one I had a lot of fun while watching, and it's like one of the perfect examples of I need an escapist movie. A movie like The Bad Guys would be one of the first ones I would want to run to.
So I'll give 2 answers here. If I'm cheating on this category, I'm going to say Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, which is an animated live-action hybrid. But I'm not going to fully cheat today. That's my answer if cheating, and Little Nicholas, Happy as Can Be, is my answer if not cheating. I've talked about this movie so much on the show. It is basically, think of Parisian Charlie Brown, and that's what you get. It
Nice.
is the Peanuts, but set in France in the 1950s. It is so beautiful. It is just incredibly heartfelt, very sincere, very earnest. I am certain if this were 2013 and it was still just the animation branch voting, this would have gotten a nomination. But now we live in times where anyone can vote in this category, which means we get some less inspired nominations overall. But ultimately, Little Nicholas deserves a watch anytime you can find it. But let's move on to costume design. We have Babylon, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Elvis, Everything Ever All at Once, and Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris.
This is a movie, for my personal predictions, I was saying was going to massively underperform. I had it just get into one category. I had it missing this category, but it was so deserving of a nomination, and I wish it would have gotten it, and that would be The Woman King. I love the costumes here. They're very inspired costumes. They do a lot of work with them, and I know I'm not saying much here because I don't feel like there's much to say. Just watch the movie. Google some photos. Look at them. They look great.
I'll take your role of Batman Stan here and say the Batman absolutely deserved a costume design nomination. Just the way that I talked earlier about in adapted screenplay, how they adapted these characters, how they adapted the situation that we know. They did the same with the costumes. Every costume looks different and unique and new. The Riddler being this green jacket and mask. The Penguin being in this suit and fantastic prosthetics. Even Catwoman, it's not that skin tight suit. We all know it's different. And Batman's suit not looking like a $1 billion project, but just kind of like someone threw something together. The costumes in here look so DIY. They look so real. And it's what grounds the film and makes it believable that this could happen in our world.
That leads us into the best makeup and hairstyling category. All Quiet on the Western Front, The Batman, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Elvis, and The Whale were the nominees. I think that's a pretty great lineup, but I'm using a movie that I would describe as a horror. People probably wouldn't. People would say this movie's awful, this movie deserves nothing. I'm on the boat. This movie deserved actress, and it deserves makeup and hairstyling, and that is Blonde. What they're able to do with not just Ana de Armas, but various people in this movie, fitting them into the time period, making them look photorealistic, I thought was very impressive. Like there's specific shots and stills you could take from Blonde and compare, like just post them on Twitter, and people would probably say, like, hey, that's Marilyn Monroe. That's not Ana de Armas. And to me, that's just a sign of very impressive makeup and hairstyling.
Crimes of the Future is my pick right here. 2 words. Ear Man. You got a dude with a bunch of ears all over him. And not just that, cool guy. David Cronenberg always does so much in his body horror films with creating new visions, with creating new ways that the flesh can mold and shape. And in this film, I think it's a magnum opus for makeup and hairstyling in his films. But let's get into original score. So in original score nominated, we have All Quiet on the Western Front, Babylon, The Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and The Fabelmans. Now, there's some notable snubs in this category, so I'll just say mine right off the bat because they were the 2 ones that were expected and didn't get in. Women Talking and Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. How do you not nominate those? I don't know. Women Talking in particular, I listened to that score after it got snubbed, just walking around, and it is incredible. And I get emotional just hearing the music. So, but I'll open the floor to you. What's your shout out here?
You just talked about Crimes of the Future, of how that movie lives and dies with its makeup. I agree, but it's elevated by its score. Its score adds so much extra weight, so much extra punch to those scenes where, yes, you're seeing these visuals. I don't want to say these horror visuals because sometimes they're not horror, they're romantic in Crimes of the Future. But they are made that way by the score that's underlying these performances from Viggo, from Kristen Stewart. This is a score I can listen to just in my free time. As you mentioned about women talking, just walking around, I can go on drives or go on runs, listen to this Crimes of the Future score. It just gets me going.
So, best sound. All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar The Way of Water, The Batman, Elvis, Top Gun Maverick. What is your number 6?
So we've gone through like 4 categories in a row that I could have picked Nope, but this is the category I was saving Nope for. The sound design of Nope is immaculate. It, regardless of the visuals, regardless of the acting, the tone, the screenplay, it, like you say, Crimes of the Future lives and dies on its makeup. Nope lives or dies on its sound, because you could close your eyes without even having visuals. You can hear the sound and just envision the horror. This is the one that hurt me most for Nope. Nope's a movie I love. It's like I mentioned with Bardo, I think it's going to have a revisionist history. I know Nope is a very widely liked film, but there's not many people saying like, oh, this is movie of the year type of thing. And I feel like in a few years, people will be like, why don't we give Nope more love?
I'm going to shout out Everything Ever All at Once here, mostly because it uses sound in such a creative way. I keep coming back to this with Everything Everywhere. It's not that it executes it flawlessly, it's that it's creative in design. Just the breadth of sound effects that they use. They use the Super Smash Bros. Like KO sound multiple times through the film. The sound effects, the variety of sound effects, where they're pulling from, is so creative, so vibrant, and it's what gives the film that sort of Adult Swim Cartoon Network energy that it has. And with that, I think we've finished every category.
We have. So I want to thank everyone out there for tuning in. This was a long one out there. We went through a lot of categories. We said what some of our personal extra nominations we wish could have got in. So if you made it this far, I mean, do I got a bag? Please give us a like. Drop us a comment. I really want to know what your extra nomination would be. Whether it is something completely out there, like my pick of blonde for hair and makeup, or something more conventional. Regardless, I'm sure it's great. I can't wait to read it.
I know we'll get a lot of people saying RRR and a lot of people saying Dolly DeLeon. I know we'll get
Deserved.
those two. Both
Deserved.
Both deserved. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. My name is Matt.
And my name's Dyl, and this is Fantasy Filmball.